Quite a few people have been asking us on our tarot groups about the Unicursal Hexagram and why it appears in the Thoth tarot deck. So we've been doing some digging, some research, and this is our investigation into the mystery of the Unicursal Hexagram. So Bart, you're the tarot expert. You've got all the editions. How many editions does the Unicursal Hexagram appear in?
Oh, basically, you could say there is 3 different versions of the Unicursal Hexagram.
Yeah.
Call it like that. There is 3 main editions, 3 main different versions.
Right. And that's in 3 different tarot decks, 3 versions of the Book of Thoth.
Yes, not in the oldest. You have the white box A and white box B, the 2 first ones did not have the Unicursal Hexagram. And after that, all the boxes had it except for the versions with the 3 magi. All the other boxes had the Unicursal Hexagram. Right.
So this is a fairly new thing.
It is, since it's not in all the boxes, it's not in the first box, and it is,
so,
I don't believe Frida Lady Harris made a Unicursal Hexagram card. No. This is put in afterwards.
We was, definitely. And we know that Crowley actually included a diagram of the Unicursal Hexagram in the Book of Thoth, but he just makes a point, oh, look, you can make this in all one journey.
Yes, he pays not much attention to it.
You think so, wouldn't it? It's a bit strange. Why is the Unicursal Hexagram in the Book of Thoth? And the point about it is that you can, it's a hexagram ritual. Normally, if you have a hexagram, it's 2 triangles, upright and reversed, and you have to do 2 separate operations to invoke from them, because you can't join them up. But you can do it with the universal hexagram. Crowley kind of claimed that he invented it. But the story is a bit more complicated than that. So we still don't know either, do we, who actually decided that the cards needed the hexagram?
No way. This was a publisher's idea, probably.
Could be, yeah. It could be a joke, you know. Well, let's see. So we've done some research, and what we thought we'd do first is look at the history of the Unicursal Hexagram. And so, Bart, so when did it first appear?
The very first appearance of Unicursal Hexagram was in 1588.
Wow.
In a work by a man called Giordano Bruno, in a work called Mathesis.
Wow. Oh. And it's a strange one, isn't it? Because it's kind of a block.
Yes, in a square.
It's in a square. Yeah.
Ours is actually in a circle.
Yeah.
The 6 points.
Yeah.
So it looks different than the one we're used to seeing,
right.
But it is nevertheless a Unicursal Hexagram.
Right. So there we are. And of course, Giordano Bruno, he was killed by the Catholic Church for heresy.
Yes, he died.
Things as well.
He died in a heroic way.
Be careful when you use the Unicursal Hexagram.
They might set you on fire.
So when's the next time that we come across it?
And wasn't it 1639?
Yep.
In Blaise Pascal's Hexagrammum Mysticum Theorem.
Yes, well, that's clearly a book about the hexagram.
Obviously.
I haven't read it.
Sounds fascinating. The mystical theory of the hexagram.
Yeah. I mean, it's a pretty specific title, isn't it? So that's the basis, really, historically, in the books. Blaise Pascal in 1639 was the latest version. And then we move on to the secret societies, the magical orders. Because in 1884, the Martiniste Order was founded in France, and one of their symbols is a universal hexagram. So now we're coming on to Aleister Crowley. And what did dear old Aleister think about the Unicursal Hexagram?
Well, it was his magical son, Frater Achad.
Yes.
Frater Achad, who introduced it to him, and when he saw the image for the first time, he called it altogether evil. Eh?
He did like it. There's a letter. He sort of Crowley sort of slagging off the whole idea of the concept. Mind you, there's a number of times in my life when I said, I introduced that, oh, that's rubbish, it's no good, I'm not interested. And then 2 or 3 years later down the road, oh.
You married her.
So, he liked it. Crowley changed his mind. He did a U-turn, a bit like Boris Johnson.
He must have.
He must have. Because later, the Unicursal Hexagram with a rose, with a 5-petal rose in the center, became a symbol of Thelema. So that's basic history of the Unicursal Hexagram. It was a curiosity, mathematical curiosity, and then it's taken over by the magical orders at some point, and it's something that Crowley really got into, as we'll find out. So what's the Unicursal Hexagram equivalent to? Any ideas, Bart?
The Star of David?
Yep. Yep. It's and that's also to do with the 7 planets, isn't it? It's a balancing, it's invoking the 7 planets.
There is one peculiarity about the Unicursal Hexagram opposed to the Star of David, because the Unicursal Hexagram, if drawn correctly, actually has 7 points. The center is also a point, which is not the case on the Star of David. Good
point. Good point. You've been doing your research, Bart. We know from research is that it's also equivalent to the Ankh, the symbol of life in ancient Egypt, which is to do with the hangman as well, of course, as we know. And our favorite, the rose cross. We've done a few videos on the rose cross, haven't we? So there's the whole of the symbolism that's associated with that as well. And it's also associated with the pentagram of Yod-Heh Shin-Vav-Heh, which is the kind of Kabbalistic version of spelling Jesus. And that gives you the 4 points plus spirit as well. And of course, the point about that pentagram is that it's reversible. Some people get a bit upset about it. It's the mark of the devil. Right, getting to the point now where we're going to do a tarot reading. You've had a few interesting messages from people on our groups on Facebook. And there's one lady sent a rather long question, but I managed to boil it down into one simple question.
Destructive behavior.
Yes, that's the question, isn't it? Here we go, yes. So what is causing my self-destructive behavior? I think this person is sort of doing displacement activity or things to avoid doing something else. So Bart, you're the master of the cards.
Yes. Now, this is my least special deck or my most special deck. This is the
well, you can't say that for this person. It's got to be your special deck.
This is the first deck I ever had. This is the deck that got me started on the Thoth tarot.
It's got a lot of memories then, hasn't it?
Because it's had a lot of shuffling and it's already had a lot of cleaning, or it would.
Good. It's used. It's good. It's got memories.
Well, it does. It's got a lot of energy in it.
That's what we need. That's what we need.
And it's well shuffled already. All right, Paul.
Okay. 8 of Cups, depression.
And?
Oh, wow. Princess of Swords.
It gives you goosebumps when they arrive, doesn't it?
It looks like, that's interesting, because right this second, we don't know whether that relates to her, because we know it's a lady, or someone she knows.
Now, these 2 cards together.
Yes.
In short, what would you say, Paul?
Oppressive, depressed, doesn't want to do anything.
I would say trying to fight her inner moods with her mind.
Yes.
With her brain, but doing it in a bit of an insensitive way. Being too hard on herself.
Yes, it could be that as well. She's trying to sort of fight it with thinking and not getting anywhere, basically.
Yes, exactly. So.
Okay, so what are the 3 cards for today?
We are in the right vibe.
Wow, we've got the Tower.
The Tower, the Queen of Swords, and the 6 of Swords.
Queen of Swords and the 6 of Swords. So again, we've gone back to this idea of thinking and analysing, haven't we?
Yes.
So we talked about obsessive behavior, self-destructive behavior. So in this case, the tower represents some trauma from the past that happened to her.
I agree with that. Something
it could be a death as well, because the Queen of Swords is the widowed queen.
It could be becoming aware of something.
Yeah. It's a bit like Buddha on the roads. He comes out of the palace the first time, surrounded by beauty and luxury, and sees a dead dog. And suddenly everything just vanishes in his life. And he goes to why are things not permanent? Why do things die? Because he'd never come across anything like that in his life. So it's like a beginning of a journey, and part of the journey is what hell's going on in my life? Why aren't I happy? I should be happy, and I'm not.
If you want to make place for the new, the old needs to be cleaned up first.
Very wise. Well, we have a philosopher here now.
But I do think the middle card for me is relates to. We've already had a lot of discussion about this card. Yeah. I think this is a lady who's. It's everything that's green is air, is not real, is in the astral dimension. Right. She has the head of a man in her hand, which looks to me, which could be, I've always associated this card with a Hierophant. So really? The lessons she's learned in the past, in her life, she had to break with those.
Right.
You know? Had to kill her teacher from her childhood and make room for a new awakening.
This is called individuation. It's going from being a child of your parents to being an adult who has parents,
who has a mind of her own,
and she's not thinking and doing reacting to her parents and things. It's doing things her own way. We all have to go through this. A lot of people don't. They stay as the child of the parents, and they're 60 or 70 and they act like it. I know people like it, and it's very strange. But the last card there is the Six of Swords.
Yes.
Which
this is also about learning something about.
Yes, and that's a transition card going from one dimension to another. It's a classic going over water card as well. So we only have one water card. The two earlier cards, one is water.
Yes.
And so that's not a very happy card. It's an alchemical thing of decay and rotting and everything else. But you have to go through this process, and then you can be reborn as well. So I think it probably means that she's holding on to the grief or sadness or something, because she's seeing that as defining her, maybe.
In the earlier, when I was cutting the cards, the only cup cards we had was Indolence, which means actually lack of emotions. It looks like she's trying to approach the issue too much using her brain and not enough listening to her heart.
Yeah.
It's not so much what you think, it's how you feel about it that matters.
And the problem with exploring feelings is that you do get into these mental states.
It's the deep sea of being,
Yes. It's the dark night of the soul.
It is the dark night of the soul. Through it.
Yes. So there is hope and redemption because the Six of Swords is there, science. But the thing is that we have fire and earth missing from these cards. Because remember, the planets are not elements. The tower is Pe, which is Mars, but Mars is not fire. Okay, because fire rules Scorpio, which is a water card, and it also rules Aries, which is a fire card. So each planet rules opposing elements. System. So she needs some practical things. Maybe she needs to grow daffodils or something, or get connected with the earth.
Yeah, man, but this card also says that you have to rise beyond.
What were you saying? Say that again, Bart?
With the Queen of Swords is an indication that you have to rise beyond the mind.
Yes.
Here, the Queen of Swords, the Queen implies a watery element. It is the watery side of air.
Yes. Yes.
So this implies that you have to go beyond the normal rational side, and you have to incorporate your emotions in it.
Yes.
And this level beyond the normal rational reasonable.
I mean, And one way you could see those cards is, well, you need to go on holiday. But of course, we're in lockdown. So
yeah, be careful, you could get the blame, Paul. Why are you going abroad? Paul told me to.
Yeah, well, there's nothing new on that one, I think, as far as I know. I mean, you could maybe she needs to spend time by a lake or a river, or one way would do that because of the water thing. But practical things, making things, and also actions, going out for a walk and just sort of doing something energetic might really help as well.
Well, but to be honest, people get scared. They see the tower, but these are good cards.
Yeah,
I find.
Yeah, I think so. Because it's
growing, and this is going through the process of growing.
Yeah,
but it definitely growing.
Yeah,
you are going somewhere. Yeah. This is not pointless.
No, that's right. The thing is that when people believe they're right,
they stop.
There's nothing you can do. It's only when at some point they start to have doubts themselves. Am I right? Then you can make changes.
Can't learn anything.
That's right. You have to doubt. Not you know, it's not a total doubt on everything. That's not helpful. But you do need to sort of, you know, we're wrong sometimes. I'm often wrong.
Yes, and you have to know your own limitations.
That's right. So this lady, it could well be this repetitive behavior that she's talking about is something that's preventing her from moving on and becoming the woman she can really be, a woman of knowledge and experience. The thing about the Queen of Swords is that she's a very elegant lady who is a dancer and things like this as well. So there's a lot there, and she'll come out of this stronger and more confident.
Destructive behavior. Well, this is the tower coming in there.
Yeah. But it's not destructive. You have to. I mean, if you read the Magus card in the Book of Thoth, it's a lot about destruction and construction. This duality thing that goes on. Yes. You've got to take it apart. You put it back together again. We're back to Salve Coagula, the alchemical maxim.
After the tower, it's the start. It's the sign of hope. Normally,
yeah.
The tower is a phase where you have to go through.
Indeed.
Something really good.
Nice. So I hope this helps this young lady, and see what we can do, because the Six of Swords is of course related to the hexagram because it's a 6.
Exactly.
And the 6 is the perfect number, because 1 + 2 + 3 = 6. 1 × 2 × 3 also equals 6. And it's the junction point at the center where the sun is, where you have to have balance and harmony for all of your rituals. If you read book 4, the Justice card is very much related. Crowley says that if you do one thing on one side of the ritual space, then you have to do something on the other side to balance it as well. It's always about balance. You mustn't go one side too much or to the other side too much. Right, Unicursal Hexagram Part 2. So the best way to understand the Universal Hexagram is to see it in terms of the Tree of Life. And here we have the Tree of Life. I think everybody knows what the Tree of Life looks like, just in case you don't know. And there's 2 ways of putting the Universal Hexagram on the Tree of Life. On the left, yes.
You keep saying universal.
Yeah, I mean unicursal. Yeah, see. Unicursal Hexagram.
Yes.
The Unicursal Hexagram is best described on the Tree of Life. And there's 2 positions in particular, one on the left-hand side, where the center is on Dart, on the center pillar. And then that path is, of course, where the High Priestess is. And that covers the top 3 supernal Sephirot, along with the points down to Tiphereth. And the second Unicursal Hexagram is based on Tiphereth. And that goes down to Yesod. But the interesting thing, of course, is you could actually put another Unicursal Hexagram on Yesod. But they don't, do they? I think that's all the Cliphotic stuff and all those things that we're not supposed to know about. Scary stuff.
If you would put dots on this Tree of Life, then
it would be where Yesod is. Dart would be where Yesod is, yes.
No, dot would be on the lower one, where Tiferet is the center. The upper point would be dot.
If you have Yesod as the center,
Yesod, yes.
Yes, then it's there's a connection. Kenneth Grant goes into a lot between the connection between Dart and Yesod. Okay, so this is sort of sex magic and all kinds of stuff that goes on.
They are a bit opposites of each other, so they are united in another way.
Yeah. So it's interesting. So they only kind of show two things, but clearly you can have a third as well. So then Crowley actually gives this diagram, which also appears in Book 4.
Which I was also astonished that he always used the Star of David, although the Unicursal Hexagram would have been at least just as appropriate, if not more.
Yeah. It's an interesting. I mean, that's it's the Book of Thoth is essentially a cut and paste of his entire knowledge, but it's an incredibly
chaotic.
No, it's not chaotic at all. It appears chaotic from one direction, from when we're looking up from the bottom, we're supposed to have started in Malka, but from Keter, there's an order and purpose to everything in the Book of Thoth. And that's the interesting thing, been working through to find out exactly what those things are. So here we have the centered on Tiphereth. And so the Saturn, which is in Bina, actually goes to the central pillar. So that balances the energy. And it has the number 3 in there because that's Bina.
Doesn't that, this has always been a bit, I know Saturn is in Bina, and Saturn is the only planet in the supernal triangle. Therefore, this top point of the Unicursal Hexagram belongs to Saturn. I get the logic. But come on, don't you agree on that? Because there is a bit of discussion going on about whether Crowley intended the Unicursal Hexagram to be the lower one or the upper one. And generally, people use the lower one, but many people believe that the one Crowley...
Well, they're doing the lower one because they're not allowed to go to the higher one because they haven't reached that level in their grades. But we're tarot readers, so we can, and we do.
We do what we will.
Exactly, yeah? Because we're not constrained by this thing. We, tarot cards all over the place. We can go anywhere we like.
Our will unassuaged by any purpose.
Yes, quotation from Book of the Law there.
Exactly.
So when we go round them, at the top we have Saturn at number 3. Then on the right-hand side is Jupiter 4, which is Hesed. Then we flip across to Mars as 5. Then through the center, which, as you said, on the Unicursal Hexagram, would be actually a crossing point there. And of course, it's a cross as well that we have at the center of the Unicursal Hexagram as well. So again, we're back to the idea of the energies of those things. And then we flip across to Netzach and Venus in 7. Mercury on the other side is 8. And then we finish in Luna at 9.
I remember, actually, we forgot to mention that in our chats. Crowley saw the Unicursal Hexagram as a representation of the universe, with the sun being in the middle and the 6 planets around it.
Yeah.
Like
I mean, Tiferet is beauty, because I remember on a workshop, someone said, well, why isn't it 7? And it is because you want the balanced energies, and the sun is at the center, and the planets go around the sun, except for the lunar, of course, which is the moon of the Earth. But it is a more balanced and harmonious way of working, because you have to remember that these symbols and evocations are used in different functions. It just depends on the purpose that you're doing and all these things. But you have to have balance and harmony in all of those things as well. So in the Book of Thoth, we're essentially unifying the 6 and the 5, which also would be the pentagram as well, the 4 elements plus spirit. And then we have this diagram, which also comes from Book 4 as well. The whole point about the Unicursal Hexagram, that, as we said before, is unlike a normal hexagram, you can't reverse it. You can't turn a normal hexagram up and down.
No, you can't.
But you can with the Unicursal Hexagram, because you have the 5 petalled rose at the center. 5 petals obviously represents the 4 elements plus spirit. and you can have it one petal up, or you can have it two petals up. That would be then very similar to the pentagram with with 2 points up. It's supposed to be demonic. It's a devil and all that stuff.
And the peculiar thing is now, if you have a deck with a unicursal hexagram, they have been printed quite random. It's like half of them, if half of the edition have been printed with the one petal up, and the other half have been printed with two petals up.
That's balance.
Exactly.
It's the petal that gives you the means to reverse it. So it doesn't mean, because the unicursal hexagram is a symbol of balance anyway, doesn't become imbalance when you reverse it. It's doing a different function.
The last card. Everything bad is a good thing if you master it.
Yeah. Just got a long list of things to master. And as you pointed out, Bart, it's Liber V Reguli is one of Crowley's books where the unicursal hexagram is used extensively. So, which is essentially about a daily invocation that also activates various magical phrases and rituals like abracadabra and all of these things as well. So it's an important ritual in itself. Liber Reguli relates to Regulus, the star in Leo, which is considered to be the beginning of the zodiac and the precession of equinoxes. So we don't start at Aries, we actually start, which is 2 of Wands, we actually start in the 5 of Wands, which is Leo. So Saturn in this point, we think, oh, Saturn in the 5 of Wands is Leo, is very heavy. But in this system, it's the point on the center of the Kabbalistic tree of life at Dart. So it suddenly becomes a powerful symbol of energy and illumination, the divine white brilliance from Kata and everything else. Yes.
Can we mention that? So, in Liber Reguli is one of the main places where Crowley applies the unicursal hexagram, and this is also called the ritual of the mark of the beast.
Yeah.
And since he called himself the beast.
But also the beast is Leo.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
he's
saying something and he's not saying something, basically. So why did they include the unicursal hexagram? Because now we can see that there is a purpose to it, and it's used in at least one ritual extensively in the Libers of Crowley. So why do they put it in the Thoth Tarot deck? It's a good question. I came up with 3 reasons. One is decoration. It's a nice thing to have in the deck because there's 78. There's always been a couple of cards left over. They have to fill up anyway. It can be used for invocation. So you could use it in a reading. If you put it in there, then that would be an indication. That would be where an invocation is required with those energies of whatever cards are around it. And also it makes the Book of Thoth Thelemic, which is kind of interesting because, people think it's Thelemic, and a lot of the time it's not as Thelemic as they think. What do you think? What do you think, Bart?
Balance.
Balance.
Yes.
Good point. Well, we talked about balance, didn't we, with the Rose Cross as well. So
exactly the rose, after the study of the Rose Cross, that I think balance, because remember the mandala I made, the unicursal hexagram had a perfect place in this. If you would put all your Thoth, the entire Thoth tarot deck on the Rose Cross, yeah, there is a designated place for the unicursal hexagram.
Right.
The white square.
Yeah. So, I hope we've enlightened you a bit on.
But we have to keep it. There is so much to be said about Excuse me, I'm going to get my gun.
I think your budgie has got more to say on the subject than you have.
No, she just can't resist it, does she? Can she?
So if you've got any comments, leave them below. And also, of course, subscribe and give us some likes and some love as well if you've been enjoying these videos. Yes, 3-card readings, you know, send in your questions for us to have a bash at. Yeah, we can't claim to give, you know, authoritative advice on anything, but it's, you know, we like quirky questions.
Yes.
You know, not just the usual, is my boyfriend going to come back stuff. You know, but deep and meaningful ones like this evening. Yes, it's been a really interesting question.
And I was very happy with the answer the cards gave as well.
Tarot's amazing, isn't it? It comes up with these things, you know, because, you know, mine was a blank. I hadn't had a clue what cards were going to come up.